December 19th, 2025. Mark that date. Remember it, because according to government sources who spoke on condition of anonymity, something significant is scheduled to happen on that day. Something involving 3I Atlas, the massive interstellar object currently racing through our solar system. And the silence from official channels isn't accidental. It's calculated. It's deliberate. And if you understand what's really happening behind closed doors in Washington, Geneva, and Beijing, that silence should terrify you. Start with what we know publicly. 3I Atlas was discovered in July 2025 by the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System in Chile. The announcement came from the Minor Planet Center on July 2nd. Within hours, astronomers worldwide began tracking this visitor from beyond our solar system. Within days, they realized this wasn't just another cosmic wanderer. This was something unprecedented, something that didn't behave like natural objects should behave, something that raised questions nobody in positions of authority wanted to answer publicly. The object measures approximately 10 kilometers across, roughly the size of Manhattan. It's traveling at speeds exceeding 200,000 kilometers per hour. Its trajectory brought it into the inner solar system on a path that astronomers calculated had less than a 0.005% probability of occurring naturally, less than 5 chances in 100,000. Those aren't odds. Those are impossible coincidences stacked on top of statistical anomalies wrapped in mathematical improbabilities. And yet government scientists kept insisting, publicly, that 3I Atlas was just a comet, just ice and rock from another star system. Nothing more. Move along. Nothing to see here. But Representative Anna Paulina Luna from Florida didn't move along. On October 31st, she sent a formal letter to NASA's acting administrator demanding immediate release of all data, images, and observations related to 3I Atlas. She specifically requested the high-resolution photographs taken by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter on October 2nd, when the object passed within 19 million miles of the red planet. Those images, according to sources familiar with the situation, showed details that contradicted the natural comet hypothesis. They showed structures, geometries, patterns that shouldn't exist on a 7.5 billion-year-old chunk of ice that's been bombarded by cosmic radiation for longer than Earth has existed. NASA's response? Silence. The agency cited the government shutdown that began October 1st as the reason for non-disclosure. But here's what doesn't add up. The government reopened, funding resumed, yet those images remain classified, not withheld. Not under review, classified. That's a specific designation. That means someone somewhere in the chain of command made a determination that those photographs represent information that could threaten national security if released to the public. What exactly did the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter see that warrants that level of secrecy? Professor Avi Loeb from Harvard University has been vocal about the need for transparency. He briefed members of Congress on October 31st about 3I Atlas and its implications. He's requested NASA release all scientific data for independent analysis. He's pointed out that the anomalies surrounding this object, if they were observed in any other scientific context, would demand extraordinary scrutiny. But instead of scrutiny, we get press releases about natural, though unusual, cometary activity. Instead of data, we get reassurances that everything is under control. Instead of answers, we get scheduled briefings that get postponed, rescheduled, then canceled entirely. On November 6th, Defense Scoop reported that NASA officials had scheduled a meeting with Representative Luna for the following day. That meeting happened. What was discussed remains unknown. Luna's office released a brief statement acknowledging the meeting occurred and stating that NASA had agreed to provide additional information once analysis is complete. When will analysis be complete? No timeline provided. What form will the information take? No specifics offered. Will it include the classified images? No comment. The Pentagon added another layer to this story. When asked if 3I Atlas represented a national security threat, a Department of Defense spokesperson stated that the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office was following reports relating to 3I Atlas closely, but that the object falls outside AARO's mission as the object is assessed to be a comet. Notice the phrasing, not confirmed to be a comet, not definitively identified as a comet, assessed. That's intelligence community language. That means they're operating on evaluations and interpretations, not certainties. And if they're not certain, why are they telling the public they are? Here's what government insiders won't say publicly, but will confirm off the record. Starting in early September, multiple federal agencies began coordinating preparations for what internal documents refer to as the December event. These preparations involved FEMA, the Department of Homeland Security, the National Security Council, and elements of the intelligence community. The stated purpose, according to one source, was to ensure continuity of government operations and public safety in the event of unexpected developments related to the approach of 3I Atlas in mid-December. Unexpected developments. What developments? If this is just a comet passing through, what could possibly develop that would require FEMA coordination and continuity of government protocols? Those protocols are reserved for catastrophic scenarios, nuclear war, asteroid impact, pandemic outbreak, events that threaten the basic functioning of society. Why would those protocols be necessary for a comet that every official source insists poses zero threat to Earth? The trajectory provides part of the answer. 3I Atlas reached perihelion, its closest approach to the Sun, on October 30th. At that moment, it was on the opposite side of the Sun from Earth, completely obscured, unobservable from ground-based telescopes. Only space-based assets, SOHO, Stereo, the James Webb Space Telescope, could see what happened during those crucial hours. And, according to multiple sources, what happened during perihelion was not normal cometary behavior. The object brightened explosively, far beyond predicted levels. Its emissions changed composition, and its trajectory, which had been precisely calculated based on months of observations, deviated by 4 arcseconds from the predicted path. 4 arcseconds doesn't sound significant. It's a tiny angular measurement, barely noticeable even with sophisticated instruments. But when you're tracking an object traveling at 200,000 kilometers per hour across interstellar distances, 4 arcseconds translates to hundreds of thousands of kilometers of positional difference. Something caused 3I Atlas to change course. Not by much, just enough to adjust its trajectory slightly. Just enough to ensure that when it reaches its closest approach to Earth on December 19th, it will pass at exactly 1.8 astronomical units, approximately 270 million kilometers. That distance is important. It's far enough that there's no possibility of collision, no gravitational effects on Earth's orbit, no tidal disruptions. Perfectly safe from a physical standpoint. But it's also close enough for detailed observation, close enough that ground-based telescopes, space telescopes, and even amateur astronomers with modest equipment will be able to see 3I Atlas in unprecedented detail, close enough that whatever this object is, whatever it's doing, will have a front-row seat for the show. And that, according to sources familiar with the classified briefings, is what has governments worried. Not that 3I Atlas will hit us, but that we'll see something. Something that can't be explained away as natural phenomena. Something that will force uncomfortable admissions about what this object actually is. Consider the arrival direction. 3I Atlas entered the solar system from a trajectory that traces back to a region of sky within 9 degrees of the famous WOW signal source. The WOW signal, detected in 1977 by the Big Ear radio telescope, remains the strongest candidate for an artificial extraterrestrial transmission ever received. For 48 years, scientists have debated its origin, its meaning, and whether it was even real. And now, an interstellar object arrives from almost exactly the same direction. The probability of that being coincidence? 0.6%, less than 1 chance in 160. Stack that on top of the trajectory probability. Stack that on top of the perihelion timing that obscured the object precisely when it was brightest. Stack that on top of the course correction that adjusted its December approach distance. Stack that on top of the chemical composition that's nothing like Oort cloud comets from our own solar system. Each anomaly individually might be dismissible. Collectively, they paint a picture that conventional astronomical explanations can't fully address. Professor Loeb has stated publicly that he assesses the probability of 3I Atlas being artificial at 30 to 40%. That's not fringe speculation. That's a Harvard astrophysicist, former chair of the astronomy department, saying there's a 1 in 3 chance this object was manufactured, built, sent here deliberately. And government officials, the ones who've seen the classified data, the ones who've reviewed the analysis that hasn't been released to the public, they're not contradicting him. They're not calling him crazy. They're not issuing statements explaining why he's wrong. They're staying silent. And that silence is deafening. Behind closed doors, the conversations are different. According to one intelligence community source, a classified assessment completed in late October concluded that 3I Atlas exhibits characteristics inconsistent with natural cometary formation and behavior. The assessment didn't conclude it was artificial, but it couldn't conclude it was natural either. The recommendation was to maintain continuous monitoring, prepare for multiple scenarios, and avoid public statements that might need to be walked back later. In other words, don't tell people it's definitely just a comet because we might have to admit it's something else. The European Space Agency has been more forthcoming, at least relatively. In early November, ESA scientists published preliminary findings from observations made by multiple spacecraft and ground stations. Those findings confirmed unusual electromagnetic emissions from 3I Atlas, not radio signals, not the kind of modulated transmissions you'd associate with deliberate communication, but electromagnetic activity that doesn't match plasma processes around natural comets, activity that suggests internal power generation, activity that, in the words of one ESA researcher who spoke anonymously, looks suspiciously like something operating inside that object. Operating, present tense. Not ancient dormant technology encased in ice. Operating, active, functional, doing something, even if we don't understand what. The James Webb Space Telescope observed 3I Atlas in August, before perihelion. NASA released some of that data in late August, showing that the object's surface had been transformed by billions of years of cosmic ray bombardment. The radiation had penetrated 50 to 65 feet deep, creating what scientists called a radiation-processed crust. That announcement got moderate coverage. What didn't get announced publicly was what Webb's instruments detected beneath that crust. Spectroscopic analysis indicated internal structures with compositions that don't match ice or rock, symmetries that natural accretion processes don't produce, voids, chambers, geometries that one analyst described as architectural. That analysis remains classified. The scientist who mentioned it did so in a private conversation at an international conference in Geneva in late September. That scientist has since been instructed not to discuss 3I Atlas publicly pending completion of peer review. Peer review that, according to multiple sources, has been delayed indefinitely at NASA's request. Because the findings are controversial, because they're uncertain, or because they're certain and someone decided the public isn't ready for what they reveal. December 19th approaches, 40 days away as of writing this. 40 days until 3I Atlas reaches its closest point to Earth. 40 days until millions of observers worldwide can point their telescopes at this object and see for themselves what's happening. And here's what governments know but haven't said publicly. They can't control the narrative once that happens. They can't classify what amateur astronomers photograph from their backyards. They can't prevent international observers from sharing data independently. The December event, whatever it turns out to be, will play out in full view of anyone who cares to watch. That's why the preparations. That's why FEMA's involved. That's why continuity of government protocols have been activated, not because 3I Atlas poses a physical threat, but because it poses an informational threat, a threat to the maintained narrative about humanity's place in the universe, a threat to the comfortable assumption that we're alone, that interstellar visitors are just rocks and ice, that nothing out there is paying attention to us. If 3I Atlas is what some scientists privately believe it might be, everything changes. And governments by nature don't handle paradigm shifts well. They handle them with caution, with control, with carefully managed disclosure. The military knows something. Multiple sources confirm that Space Force units, satellite surveillance networks, and intelligence agencies across NATO countries have been tasked with continuous monitoring of 3I Atlas since early September. This isn't routine astronomical observation. This is classified operational tracking using assets normally reserved for monitoring hostile satellites, missile launches, and potential threats to national security. When defense departments worldwide start treating a comet like a military concern, you need to ask what they know that the public doesn't. Start with the International Asteroid Warning Network. IAWN exists specifically to coordinate global response to near-Earth objects that might pose impact threats. Its members include space agencies from the United States, Europe, Japan, Russia, China, and dozens of other nations. On September 20th, IAWN initiated an unprecedented observation campaign for 3I Atlas. The campaign runs from November 27, 2025 through January 27, 2026. 2 full months of coordinated global observation using every available telescope, radar system, and space-based sensor. Here's what makes that remarkable. 3I Atlas poses zero impact threat to Earth. Its closest approach is 1.8 astronomical units, roughly 270 million kilometers. That's farther than the distance between Earth and Mars at their closest. There's no orbital mechanics scenario under which this object could hit our planet. None. So why is the Planetary Defense Network designed explicitly to protect Earth from asteroid impacts, dedicating 2 months of intensive observation to something that can't possibly threaten us physically? The answer, according to multiple sources familiar with IAWN planning, is that the observation campaign isn't about protecting Earth from 3I Atlas. It's about documenting what 3I Atlas does during its closest approach, what signals it emits, what course corrections it makes, what activities become detectable when observation conditions are optimal. They want a complete record because, privately, scientists involved in the campaign don't believe this is a natural object. And if it's not natural, then understanding its behavior becomes a matter of planetary security, even if it poses no collision risk. The campaign involves approximately 40 major observatories worldwide, plus countless smaller facilities and amateur astronomers. Observations will span visible light, infrared, radio, ultraviolet, and X-ray wavelengths. Multiple spacecraft will participate, including the James Webb Space Telescope, the Hubble Space Telescope, the Chandra X-ray Observatory, and numerous Earth observation satellites that can be tasked for astronomical viewing. This represents the most comprehensive observation program ever organized for a single comet or asteroid. The cost runs into hundreds of millions of dollars when you account for telescope time, spacecraft operations, data processing, and personnel. You don't spend that kind of money without good reason. Military involvement goes deeper than most people realize. According to defense analysts who spoke on condition of anonymity, Space Force units responsible for monitoring orbital objects received classified briefings about 3I Atlas in mid-September. Those briefings included trajectory predictions, spectroscopic data, and analysis, suggesting the object exhibits characteristics inconsistent with natural formation. Space Force personnel were instructed to maintain continuous radar lock on the object using ground-based phased array systems and space-based sensors. That's protocol normally reserved for tracking potentially hostile spacecraft or debris that threatens critical satellites. The United States Space Surveillance Network, a global array of ground-based radars and optical telescopes that tracks everything in Earth orbit, expanded its mission in October to include deep space monitoring of 3I Atlas. This required reprogramming tracking algorithms, adjusting scheduling priorities, and coordinating with international partners to ensure coverage gaps didn't develop. One radar operator, speaking privately, described the effort as treating an interstellar comet like it's a Chinese satellite that might start maneuvering unpredictably. That's not hyperbole. That's literal operational protocol. Russia's defense ministry has been equally engaged, though less publicly. Satellite observation facilities in Siberia and the Caucasus region have been tasked with round-the-clock monitoring since late September. China's space program, typically secretive about military space activities, participated in an October meeting in Vienna, organized by the United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. That meeting, according to sources present, focused on international coordination protocols for anomalous objects of indeterminate origin. 3I Atlas wasn't mentioned by name in the official meeting summary, but everyone present understood what was being discussed. European Space Agency officials have been more forthcoming about their concerns, at least behind closed doors. A leaked internal memo from ESA's Space Situational Awareness Program, dated October 15th, stated that 3I Atlas represents an object of significant interest for planetary security and recommended maximum observation priority consistent with available resources. That memo went on to note that while the object poses no collision risk, its potential intelligence value and unclear nature warrant extraordinary monitoring efforts. Intelligence value. That's not language typically applied to comets. The coordination extends beyond government agencies. Private space companies with observation capabilities, including SpaceX, Blue Origin, and several satellite imagery firms, have been approached about contributing data. Some agreed voluntarily. Others received what sources described as strongly worded requests from Defense Department liaisons. One imagery company executive, speaking off the record, described being asked to retask commercial Earth observation satellites to watch 3I Atlas during specific time windows. When asked why civilian satellites designed for terrestrial imaging would be needed for astronomical observation, the executive was told it was a matter of national security and that further questions weren't appropriate. Financial markets haven't missed the implications. In late October, defense contractors with space surveillance capabilities saw unusual stock activity. Shares of companies manufacturing telescope systems, radar equipment, and space-based sensors experienced volume spikes and modest price increases. Market analysts noted the moves but couldn't identify specific catalysts. No government contracts had been announced. No earnings reports had exceeded expectations. Just quiet accumulation by institutional investors who seemed to know something the broader market didn't. Follow the money, and you find people preparing for something significant. Insurance companies are paying attention to Lloyd's of London, which underwrites policies for satellite operators and space ventures, issued internal guidance in early November about potential risks from interstellar objects. The guidance didn't mention 3I Atlas specifically, but the timing was conspicuous. It recommended that satellite operators review their collision avoidance protocols and consider whether existing coverage adequately addressed non-traditional threat vectors. Translation: if something unexpected happens in December, don't assume your current policies will pay out without questions. Academic institutions with astronomy programs have noticed pressure from government sponsors. Several researchers involved in 3I Atlas observations reported being asked to sign additional non-disclosure agreements before receiving access to certain datasets. That's unusual. Scientific research normally operates on principles of open publication and peer review. NDAs are rare outside of classified defense projects. Yet here are civilian astronomers conducting observations of a publicly visible comet, being asked to restrict what they can discuss. One professor, who declined to be named for fear of jeopardizing future funding, described the situation as unprecedented in my 30-year career. The legal framework is murky. The Outer Space Treaty, signed in 1967, establishes principles for international space law. It prohibits nations from claiming sovereignty over celestial bodies and requires that space activities be conducted for peaceful purposes. But what happens when a celestial body might not be natural? What happens when an interstellar object exhibits characteristics suggesting intelligence? The treaty doesn't address those scenarios because in 1967 they seemed like pure science fiction. Now they might be reality, and international lawyers are scrambling to interpret 7 decades-old language in entirely new contexts. The United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs convened a closed-door session on October 20th to discuss legal and policy implications of contact scenarios involving non-terrestrial intelligence. That session wasn't officially connected to 3I Atlas, but everyone invited knew the real agenda. Attendees included representatives from major spacefaring nations plus Brazil, India, South Africa, and other countries with significant astronomical capabilities. Discussions reportedly covered questions like, who speaks for humanity if communication is attempted? What protocols govern sharing of information about potential extraterrestrial technology? How do nations coordinate responses to objects that might be surveillance platforms from other civilizations? Those aren't academic questions anymore. They're practical policy challenges that governments face right now. And judging from the reported atmosphere at that meeting, consensus is proving elusive. Russia and China advocate for strict information control and centralized international coordination through the UN. The United States and European nations favor transparent data sharing and decentralized analysis by independent scientific institutions. Smaller nations worry about being excluded from decision-making processes that could affect all humanity. Nobody has good answers. Everyone is making it up as they go along because the playbook for this situation doesn't exist. Religious leaders are being quietly briefed as well. In early November, representatives from the Vatican, major Islamic scholarly institutions, Hindu religious authorities, and Buddhist organizations participated in consultations with government officials about potential social and theological implications of confirmed extraterrestrial intelligence. Those consultations weren't publicized, but multiple sources confirmed they occurred. The concern isn't about theological doctrine. Most religious frameworks can accommodate extraterrestrial life. The concern is about social stability, about how populations respond when fundamental assumptions about humanity's uniqueness are challenged, about preventing panic, maintaining order, and managing the psychological shock that might accompany confirmation that we're not alone. FEMA's involvement fits this pattern. The Federal Emergency Management Agency doesn't typically concern itself with comets. Its mission is domestic disaster response and preparedness. Yet in mid-September, FEMA activated regional coordination centers and began updating emergency communication protocols. When questioned, agency spokespersons cited routine preparedness exercises, but the timing raises questions. Why September? Why focus exercises on scenarios involving unexpected information events and management of public response to unprecedented developments? Those phrases don't match natural disaster scenarios. They match disclosure scenarios. They match situations where the challenge isn't physical damage but informational shock. Continuity of government protocols, the classified plans that ensure essential government functions continue during catastrophic events, were reviewed and updated in October. Multiple sources confirm this happened across several agencies and involved coordination with congressional leadership. The specific scenarios being addressed remain classified, but one congressional staffer, speaking anonymously, described briefings about maintaining government operations and public confidence during events that might fundamentally alter public understanding of humanity's place in the universe. That's not language about hurricanes or earthquakes. That's language about paradigm shifts. The December 19th date keeps appearing in planning documents, not as a threat date, not as an impact scenario, but as a decision point, as a moment when more information will be available, as a deadline by which certain preparations need to be complete. One Defense Department planner, speaking privately, described it as the day we might need to have some difficult conversations with the public. When pressed about what conversations, the planner declined to elaborate but said, "If you've been paying attention to 3i Atlas, you can probably guess. Amateur astronomers represent a wild card that governments can't fully control. Thousands of people worldwide have telescopes capable of observing 3i Atlas during its December approach. They're not bound by government secrecy. They're not subject to non-disclosure agreements. If they see something remarkable, something that contradicts official statements, they'll post it online immediately. They'll share images, spectra, and data through forums and social media before any government can attempt to contain the information. That's why preparations focus so heavily on communication strategy, because once the cat's out of the bag, narrative control becomes impossible. Leaked PowerPoint slides from a NATO meeting in Brussels in late October outline communication protocols for anomalous observation events. The slides describe a tiered response system. Tier 1. Observations that can be explained through conventional scientific frameworks get announced through normal channels. NASA press releases, scientific publications, standard procedures. Tier 2. Observations that challenge conventional explanations but don't definitively prove artificial origin trigger carefully worded statements emphasizing uncertainty and the need for additional analysis. Tier 3. Observations that provide compelling evidence of artificial origin activate coordinated international communication strategies involving heads of state, the UN Secretary General, and simultaneous multilingual briefings designed to maximize calm and minimize panic. Nobody expects Tier 1. If 3I Atlas were just a comet, we wouldn't be having these conversations. The preparation is for Tier 2 or Tier 3, for the moment when official acknowledgement becomes unavoidable, for the day when someone somewhere observes something that can't be dismissed as natural phenomena, something so clear, so unambiguous, that continuing to maintain the just a comet story becomes untenable. December 19th might be that day, or it might not. But governments worldwide are preparing as if it could be. So what actually happens on December 19th? What should people expect? More importantly, what should they watch for that governments might not announce publicly? Let's separate confirmed facts from reasonable speculation and examine what the evidence actually suggests. First, the confirmed facts. 3I Atlas will reach its closest approach to Earth at precisely 1.797478 astronomical units, which translates to 268,898,938 kilometers. This will occur on Friday, December 19th, 2025. The exact time varies by location, but for most of Earth, closest approach happens in the late afternoon or early evening UTC. The object will be in the constellation Leo, visible from the northern hemisphere in pre-dawn skies. Expected brightness is approximately magnitude 11 to 12, possibly as bright as magnitude 9 if current activity levels continue. That means small telescopes and good binoculars under dark skies should be able to see it. Not spectacular, but accessible to serious amateur astronomers. Those are the numbers NASA publishes. Those are the trajectories calculated by multiple independent facilities worldwide. Those calculations are solid. They're based on months of observations, orbital mechanics that have proven accurate for centuries, and confirmation from dozens of tracking stations. 3I Atlas will be exactly where scientists predict it will be, within measurement uncertainties of a few hundred kilometers across a distance of hundreds of millions of kilometers. The uncertainty isn't in the trajectory. The uncertainty is in what we'll observe when it gets there. Start with the most optimistic scenario, from the perspective of those hoping this really is just a comet. 3I Atlas continues behaving as it has since perihelion. Activity gradually decreases as it moves away from the sun. Brightness fades from current levels of magnitude 11 or 12 down to magnitude 14 or fainter by year's end. Spectroscopic observations show continued water vapor and carbon dioxide emissions at declining rates consistent with solar heating models. No course corrections, no anomalous signals, no unexpected brightening or structural changes. Astronomers publish papers about unusual but ultimately natural characteristics. The object fades from public consciousness. Life continues as before. That scenario is possible. It might even be probable, depending on your starting assumptions. But it's not the scenario governments are preparing for. You don't activate FEMA, coordinate international military tracking, and brief religious leaders about a comet that fades predictably. The preparations suggest decision makers believe other scenarios are more likely. Consider scenario 2. 3. I-Atlas exhibits behavior during closest approach that challenges natural explanations but doesn't definitively prove artificial origin. Perhaps activity levels increase rather than decrease despite growing distance from the sun. Perhaps spectroscopic observations detect emissions that don't match expected cometary composition. Perhaps the trajectory shows small course corrections inconsistent with passive outgassing. Perhaps radio observations detect structured signals that could be natural plasma processes or could be something else. This is the interesting but ambiguous scenario, the one where scientific debate intensifies, where some researchers argue for exotic natural explanations while others suggest artificial origin remains possible, where media coverage explodes with conflicting expert opinions, where governments issue carefully worded statements acknowledging unusual observations while emphasizing uncertainty and ongoing analysis. This scenario creates maximum social turbulence with minimum official commitment. People demand answers. Scientists can't provide definitive ones. Conspiracy theories flourish. Some populations panic. Others dismiss the whole thing as overblown. Trust in institutions erodes further as people conclude they're being deliberately kept in the dark. This is the nightmare scenario for public relations and social stability. It's also, according to multiple sources, what some analysts consider the most likely outcome. Now consider scenario 3, the one nobody discusses publicly, but everyone involved is thinking about. 3I Atlas does something on December 19th that cannot be explained through natural processes. Maybe it performs trajectory corrections too large and too precise to attribute to outgassing. Maybe it emits radio signals with obvious modulation or information content. Maybe its structure becomes visible in high-resolution images, revealing geometries incompatible with natural accretion. Maybe it fragments in ways that expose internal structures clearly artificial. Maybe it releases smaller objects that maneuver independently. Maybe something happens that makes the artificial origin hypothesis not just plausible, but unavoidable. If that happens, the communication protocols kick in. Heads of state are briefed immediately. The UN Secretary General releases a prepared statement. Space agencies worldwide coordinate announcements in multiple languages timed to reach global audiences simultaneously. The message emphasizes several points. Earth is safe. There's no threat. This is a historic scientific discovery. International cooperation will continue. Analysis is ongoing. More information will be provided as it becomes available. Religious leaders issue supportive statements framed within their respective theological traditions. Social media platforms activate pre-planned moderation policies to counter misinformation and panic. Emergency services are placed on alert for potential civil unrest, though publicly, this is attributed to unrelated routine readiness. That's the playbook. Whether it works depends on what actually happens and how clear the evidence is. If observations leave room for doubt, if experts can plausibly argue about interpretations, the situation remains manageable. But if something occurs that's undeniable, that anyone with a telescope can verify, that amateur observers photograph and post online before official statements even begin, then narrative control becomes impossible. Then you're managing not information but reaction. And reaction at that scale, to news that profound, is unpredictable. The Southwest Research Institute proposed a mission concept earlier this year to intercept 3I Atlas using existing launch capabilities. The spacecraft would accelerate to match the object's velocity and perform a close flyby, capturing high-resolution images and spectroscopic data. Launch window opens in 2029 or 2030, catching 3I Atlas somewhere beyond Jupiter's orbit before it exits the solar system permanently. The mission wouldn't reach the object until approximately 2033, but it would represent humanity's best chance for detailed close-up examination. Funding hasn't been approved, design hasn't been finalized, but the concept exists, and if December 19th provides sufficiently compelling reasons to investigate further, that mission could go from concept to funded program remarkably quickly. China's space program has reportedly discussed similar mission concepts internally. Russia has deep space capabilities that could potentially be tasked for interception. The European Space Agency could partner with international collaborators on a joint mission. If 3I Atlas proves to be what some scientists suspect, the first spacecraft humanity sends to overtake and study an interstellar object won't lack for funding or political support. It will become the highest priority space mission in history. Every spacefaring nation will want involvement. The scientific return would be incalculable, and if the object is artificial, the intelligence value would transform our understanding of technology, engineering, and what's possible. But that's years away. December 19th is 6 weeks away. 6 weeks until the best observation opportunity we'll have as 3I Atlas transits through the inner solar system before heading outward past Jupiter and into the dark beyond. What happens in those 6 weeks depends partly on what the object does, partly on what observers detect, and partly on decisions made in government offices about what information to release and when. Amateur astronomers have a crucial role. They're the distributed observation network that governments can't control. Thousands of people with telescopes, cameras, and internet connections. If something extraordinary happens, they'll see it, they'll document it, they'll share it. That's why the International Astronomical Union coordinated the 2-month observation campaign involving amateur astronomers worldwide. Better to have them organized, sharing data through established channels, following standardized observation protocols, than operating independently with no coordination. Better to have their discoveries flow through scientific institutions that can provide context and analysis than exploding across social media with no framework for interpretation. The campaign guidelines published in late October provide specific observation instructions, suggested equipment configurations, optimal viewing windows based on location, data formats for sharing observations, contact information for professional astronomers who can provide guidance and answer questions. It's remarkably well organized for something put together in just a few months, almost as if the framework already existed, waiting for an appropriate target. Almost as if someone anticipated needing to coordinate mass amateur observation efforts for an object of special interest. Almost as if this wasn't the first time such preparations were made. Because here's something most people don't know. The protocols being used for 3I Atlas aren't entirely new. They're adapted from classified contingency plans developed in the aftermath of Oumuamua's transit through the solar system in 2017. After that first confirmed interstellar visitor, after the controversy about whether it might be artificial, after the debates about insufficient observation time and missed opportunities, various agencies developed frameworks for handling future interstellar objects more effectively. Those frameworks anticipated scenarios ranging from simple scientific interest to potential artificial origin. They outlined communication strategies, observation coordination, international cooperation mechanisms, and public information protocols. 3. iAtlas is the first real-world test of those frameworks. December 19th will show whether they work. The timing is notable. December 19th falls near the winter solstice for the Northern Hemisphere, the shortest day of the year, symbolically rich if you're inclined toward that sort of thinking. Also practically significant because it provides maximum darkness hours for observation from northern latitudes where most major observatories are located. Whether that's coincidence or whether 3I Atlas's trajectory naturally resulted in closest approach occurring near solstice is unclear. The orbital mechanics suggest it's natural, but orbital mechanics also suggested the arrival trajectory from near the WOW signal source was natural until you calculated the probability and realized it was statistically extraordinary. Stack enough extraordinary coincidences and they stop looking like coincidences. That's Avi Loeb's basic argument, that when you encounter an object exhibiting multiple anomalies, each individually unlikely but not impossible, you need to seriously consider the hypothesis that it's not natural. You need to apply the same analytical rigor that scientists apply to any other question, testing hypotheses against evidence, following the data wherever it leads. And if the data consistently points toward artificial origin, you need to acknowledge that possibility, rather than contorting natural explanations to fit observations they don't adequately explain. December 19th will provide more data, better data, data from closer range with more capable instruments under optimal observing conditions, data that will either resolve ambiguities or deepen them. Data that might confirm 3I Atlas is an unusual but natural interstellar comet, or might reveal characteristics that demand we seriously confront the alternative. Whatever happens, the world will be watching. Professional astronomers at major observatories, amateur astronomers in backyards worldwide, government analysts at monitoring stations, military personnel tracking through classified systems, media organizations preparing stories that might never run or might become the biggest news in human history. Billions of people who've heard something about an interstellar comet approaching Earth and are vaguely curious about what happens next. And a much smaller group, the ones who've been paying close attention, the ones who've noticed the anomalies and the official evasions and the extraordinary preparations, who understand that December 19th might be the day everything changes, or it might not. It might be a beautiful comet observed by enthusiasts and studied by scientists and forgotten by everyone else within weeks. It might fade into astronomical obscurity, a footnote in catalogs of interstellar objects, remembered primarily for being the third such visitor we detected. That outcome is possible, perhaps even likely. But if your governments worldwide, if you're responsible for maintaining social stability and public trust, you can't assume the best case. You have to prepare for alternatives. And the preparations, the classified briefings, the military tracking, the FEMA activation, the religious consultations, the communication protocols all suggest those with access to the full picture aren't betting on the best case. 40 days. That's what we have. 40 days until 3. iAtlas reaches closest approach. 40 days for final preparations, last-minute observations, coordinated planning. 40 days until December 19th, 2025, the date that might mark the day humanity confirmed it shares the galaxy with other intelligences, or might mark the day we observed a really interesting comet. Either way, we'll know soon. The object is approaching, the telescopes are ready, the world is watching, and whatever Truth 3 iAtlas carries, whatever secrets it might reveal, whatever questions it forces us to confront, December 19th brings answers, whether we're ready for those answers or not.